The mess in order. I have been given the management of the mess. That is, under Lieutenant Doyle. I have also no worry with buying food or supplies. That is the business of the quartermaster sergeant. We feed many patients and soldiers all together. Almost 2,000 people. The patients' mess hall is separated and in another building. The mess hall for the men is here, close to the kitchen. The cooks are good men. One of them is English and thin. He speaks a wonderful Cockney dialect. He says he has to make himself a eggnog. We have lots of cockroaches. They crawl to the ceiling, so at night the windows and doors are left open and they freeze to death and are swept out in the morning. But there are new ones the next day. Also again, those many cats everywhere. In other posts there are periodic assignments of all men to kitchen police, but here, because of the nature of this house, we have a steady crew, men who cannot be used for better work, and they are difficult. These men are all friends. They come from the Brooklyn waterfront, were drafted. The worst one is Mulvey. Mulvey sings all day, so that his song, it is the same one, has become part of the kitchen. Like the cooks in the oven, we cannot drive it out. It is a dreary piece, and he draws it out, singing mostly into the dishwasher. The words go, "Take me over the sea, that's where I want to be. Oh my, I don't want to die. Take me over the sea." There is also something about "I want to go home" in it. His friends join him in that line while they are busy with their dishes. These come in endless stacks all day long, after breakfast, luncheon, and dinner. They love to insult each other in play and call themselves by the vilest names, all in fun. And at times, while the water is running into the tub, or they are waiting for the towels to dry, they box without touching each other, dancing on their toes, and, at the most, disarranging their opponent's hair. In their free hours they are visited by girls that are as terrible as they themselves are, ragged women, young enough but with thick ankles, in shoes with blunt toes and sideways heels, with pimply faces, wide hips, and fat lips. With them they sit in a row of benches facing the river, but they are always together and behave toward the rest of us with great condescension, as if they belonged to an exquisite club that is very hard to get into. So far as I have seen, all they do out there with the girls is sing again this song, sit on the benches where they insult each other and shout the same insults of short words after anyone who passes. Their girls sit with knees far apart and love to be pushed and mauled. They scream with happiness. The ideas of morality that people seem so confusing. The men here are all so lonesome. The kitchen gang knows nothing else but to box in this business of which they constantly talk by one word. After all, it is only the itch that is in their bodies which marches in front of the command to have more people on earth. And of course they don't want any children, but it itches them just as hard. But these thoughts always confuse me, and I think of women, of girls I have seen at dances and swimming, and most I think of the muscles that run down the knees on the inside of their upper leg. They are, I think, the most exciting part, much more so than any other part of their bodies. In young girls, most certainly. In women they become flabby and of porous texture. When the kitchen gang are through washing the dishes, they have set the table in the mess hall. After meals, the three-legged stools on which the men sit are turned upside down and placed on top of the tables so that the floor can be mopped. These stools are taken down. Then one man runs through the lanes between the tables and places the plates from a pile in his arm. He does this fast, from much practice. The plates dance a while and then settle down. The next one runs around with forks, another with spoons, knives, and another with tin cups. One can hear with little experience what they are doing without being in the room. There are, of course, no napkins. For some reason, there have been complaints that the dishes are greasy. They do not wash them well enough. The same with knives and forks and cups. The officer in charge took a clean towel, slipped the end of it between the prongs of a fork, and showed me how dirty it became. He streaked a plate with his glove on, tilting it to the light. The path of his finger could be seen across the plate. It was fatty. I told this to Mulvey out in the kitchen. He turned from his tub and looked at me with small eyes. He has a way of making them look perfidious. Also, when he is told something, he assumes a position of great ease, leaning on the edge of the dishwashing tub and crossing his legs. His body, his body as in a hammock, leaning against me. With his free hand he scratches himself. This performance is chiefly for his friends, who stand around him and have great admiration for such a show of indifference. After I have told him all this, he has to turn around and go on with his work, and he does it very slowly, looking into the faces of all his friends, taking a deep breath, and he says, as if he were very tired, "Oh, well." He spits in the dishwasher and continues to wash the dishes in it. I am sorry I cannot box, but I will not allow him to get away with this. The next day is Saturday, and there is a football game. They love football games. Their terrible girls always come for them and hang around the front of the mess hall. They hurry on that day and don't sing. And I will teach them a lesson. Before they can go off duty, they must ask me for permission. The best part of this Saturday afternoon is that when they have almost finished the dishes and started to set the tables, the top sergeant, the Polish one, comes in late and eats in the kitchen. They are afraid of him. He has a voice like a bear. He can beat them up one and all together, and on top of it, lock them in the guardhouse until their bones ache. I walked into the dining room after the tables were all set, and one of them came to ask if they could go. Mulvey was already at the door. Of course, they could go if everything was done, but everything was not done, not right. I showed them the dirty forks and the greasy plates. Mulvey was called back. I made them take all the dishes and cups and forks and spoons and knives back to wash them over again. They still thought they could make the game. Mulvey used steaming water and raced around the room to help them. The plates danced down again. The top sergeant nodded to me. The men were mumbling curses, audible enough for me to understand that they were not insulting each other. When they finished, they asked again to go. I pointed at the tables and stools. "What is this?" I said. "Look at it, what a disorder! And the plates and the forks!" Mulvey was sent to get a long string and 2 pieces of wood. The top sergeant leaned against the door of the dining room and grinned with his hands in his pockets. The string came, and with a pencil I divided the first and last table in each row of tables in as many places as there were men sitting at them. Then we put the first and last tables in correct position, laid the string over the row of 10 tables on each side, and first of all pushed the tables so that they were absolutely straight. The Polish sergeant helped by bending to the edge of the first table and closing one eye, like looking down the line of stomachs of soldiers. He gave a signal with his hand for each table until they were quite in line. Then, with the string, we alighted all the stools and plates and cups of each man, also straightened out the knives and forks. When this was done, I told them now they could go, and from now on we would do it like this at every meal. But by that time it was time for supper. But they ran out to get their girls, who had waited. After supper they again hurried and set the tables. I felt sorry for them. I went up to my quarters to get the leather leggings to go out. We can wear spiral puttees if we buy them, but not leather leggings. We should, however, according to regulations, wear the canvas leggings, which are furnished by the service. Uniforms we can also have our own. I have one made in Buffalo. There is only the terrible campaign hat. No one is allowed to wear a cap or a hat like the officers have. I have bought myself a Stetson campaign hat, which at least holds its shape and has a somewhat better color. Besides, it does not turn up at the corners like a cooked mushroom. My leather leggings, which are forbidden, I have in a bag, and carrying it under my arm, I leave the fort. Next to the fort is a park, and there is a bush where I sit down and change the canvas for the leather leggings, and hide the canvas ones until I get back. I have also spurs in my pocket. When this is done, I wait for Doris's big car. It is a Pierce Arrow with the front seats apart, so one can walk between them from the back seat and sit with the driver. As I sat down under the bush, a blanket fell on me, and then I was hit in the head by a plank. It was from the kitchen gang. They kicked and trampled with boots and clubs until I was insensible. I woke up in the hospital and could not see out of my eyes. My head swam and all my limbs hurt. I sent for the Polish sergeant and asked him to have the kitchen gang arrested. He gave me a chocolate bar and said no, he would not do that because I had it coming to me. "It'll do you no good," he said. "This is America." And that is the end of The Mess in Order.